There's all kinds of trauma, and everybody struggles differently in life with different things. On this episode of Survivor Angels, you're going to hear from a woman who has really run the gamut. I call this one Abuse, Abortion, and Angels.
It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jodi.
On this episode of Survivor Angels, I have a good friend, Winnie Schrader, with me today. You probably know Dave Schrader. This is his better half. I say that in all truthfulness, too. Winnie and I are going to talk about relationship trauma today, and so I think best place to start is with your story.
Yeah, well, my story, it began in high school. I had just gotten out of, a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, and you know how that is when you're a teenager, your world's ending. And one of our mutual friends had a liking towards me, and I was unaware. I just kind of saw him in a different light once I found out about it. And in the beginning, he was quite charming. We went to the Sadie Hawkins dance together. That was kind of like our first official outing. His ex-girlfriend was there with another guy, and he really, the way he approached the whole situation was very, I guess you would say, a red flag that I didn't notice. And I'm not sure why I didn't pick up on it at the time, but we eventually became boyfriend-girlfriend, and, in the beginning of the relationship, everything's perfect. No matter who you're with, you're in that honeymoon phase.
Yes.
But it kind of gradually started deteriorating. I even remember distinctively, like the very first time he kind of aggressively came verbally at me. We were fishing, and I can't remember what I said, but I just remember his response as if it were yesterday. He turned around and told me to shut the F up, like really aggressively, and I'm like, I was kind of taken back by it. I've never been talked to like that before. I'm like, And I thought maybe it was just a one-off situation. Maybe he was having a bad day, and it eventually started becoming more and more frequent. Just kind of the verbal pushback he would always give me. And then I remember the very first time he physically hurt me. He choked me out. Out of nowhere, and I honestly, I wish I would have ended it there, and I don't understand why I didn't. But I now, as an adult, I look back and I see the problems that many women face in abusive relationships. They become codependent. They become, but I love this person. Can I fix them? That's
always the fixer.
It is. You're like, you just don't know. So eventually, it got to the point where I was fearing for my life. Many things have happened in between. He cheated on me. He has become very controlling of me and my time. Like if I was going from school to home and I didn't call him right away, he's like, where were you? And I said, well, I came home, I went to the bathroom, and I spoke with my grandma for a little bit, and then I called you. Well, it only should have taken you this time to get home and call me. And I'm like, sorry, I didn't know I was on a clock,
Right. Yeah.
It was just like things like that just kind of progressively got worse. And one of the things that really traumatized me throughout the relationship is I got pregnant. And immediately he was like, you gotta get rid of it. You gotta get rid of it. And I'm not a person that's pro-life or pro-choice. I think it's a personal decision, you know?
Right.
I could care, you know, less either way. It's whatever you decide, that's what's
That's yours.
best for you. And I personally, I don't feel like that was a reason at the time to get one. I'm like, well, teenagers have babies all the time. But, and then he treated me so poorly. Like, it's like, there was no consideration, no empathy, nothing for me. He was very rude all the time, and he got to the point where he didn't want to pay for it. And he would try and hold me down and beat the baby out of me.
Oh my gosh.
Because he didn't want to pay for it. And I remember going, and we eventually went to the clinic, and he was being very rude to me throughout the whole, in the waiting room. I mean, I'm sitting here traumatized. I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I have no choice.
Right.
And things like that. So it was just, and he was mad because he was supposed to meet his buddy to go Christmas shopping. And I'm like, I'm sitting here about to have a life sucked out of me here. Can you at least, you know, have a little empathy and show some kindness a little bit? And it was just, he was very rude about it. I remember going into the office, being taken back, and they kind of go over the procedure with you, and they ask questions. And I distinctly remember her asking me, is anybody forcing you to do this? And I wanted to scream, yes, help me. I need help.
Right.
I'm in this situation where I feel like I can't get out of. But I looked at her and said no. And that was like, I felt like that was probably one of my biggest regrets in life. At that point, I didn't say yes.
Okay.
So I had the procedure done, and on the way home, he looked at me and he goes, I wonder if that was the girl that I've always wanted.
Really?
I'm like, why would you say that to me? Just
And
to be
now,
hurt.
of all.
Yeah, we're on our way home from the clinic that I just had an abortion at, and you're kind of regretting it because it could have been the girl that you've always wanted. Excuse me. But now when I look back, I'm glad that I made that decision, not because it was the best thing for me. It was being a mother now. I think it was the best choice for the child, because my concern was, is he going to hurt this child? Is he going to start abusing this child?
Exactly.
You know, I've had friends that their boyfriends have killed their child from shaken baby syndrome, and I was picturing that in my mind when I was having the procedure done. I'm like, this has to be the best choice. I was trying to convince myself. I still was unsure because I've never been a mother. Now that I understand it more, now that I am a mom and things like that, but that was a huge turning point for me.
Okay.
You know, and as things progressively got worse, I finally, one day, I snapped. I just snapped because the last time I was in his house, we got into a fight, and he held a big buck knife to me.
Okay.
And he was punching me, and I was covering my face because I didn't want him to break my nose. I mean, he was really wailing on me. And he grabbed the knife, and he's like, if you don't move your hands, I'm going to cut them off. And I was just reaching for something because he was punching me in my kidneys. He had me down by the throat. I grabbed whatever I could find, and luckily it was a snowmobile helmet.
Oh, gee.
And I just walloped him on the side of the head, and I ran out of the house. I left my car there, everything. I just ran, and I went to the gas station that was down the street, and I called a friend to pick me up and bring me home. The next day, my dad drove me over there to pick up my car, and that's when he came out and was begging me not to leave him, that he was sorry. And I said, you've said sorry to me every time, and every time we're right back to where you have to say sorry again for the same thing. And he would not get out of my car. He was just, so I finally told him, I'm like, we just need a break. We just need a break. I knew I wasn't going back to him. I just wanted him out of my car. So I was trying to tell him anything I could so I could go. And I left, and then a week later we were at a party. He was there, and he was following me around like a lost puppy dog, wanting to talk to me, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you right now. We're on a break. Leave me alone. He, just refused to leave me alone. And I remember it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I got to get home. And he came out and he's like, I really want to talk to you. I really want to talk to you. And I'm like, no. And he just would not let up. And finally, I snapped again. And I literally gave him a verbal lashing for 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
In the street.
Wow.
Yeah. And I made him cry. And that felt so good for me because it was like I was giving him everything back that he gave to me. I was giving him all that negative energy, all that anger, everything was going right back on him, and it left me, and I felt very light. I felt like I wasn't carrying that weight and everything else. So, but I can see where women get roped into a relationship, and it happened to me at a very young age. I can't imagine what it would be like if you're married to somebody, have children, and this is what, because you have to take everybody else into consideration.
Right.
And, I wish I would have spoke sooner about it. But I really there's been kind of a resurgence with domestic violence with the Gabby Bettino case that came out is that a couple of years ago now?
Already, yes.
Oh, jeez. And I felt really compelled because I felt like that could have been me. I felt there was a couple times I was close to death. I was telling people I was either going to be put in the hospital or dead. Either way.
Right.
And, I wish I would have spoke out. And then I found out, which is kind of sad, that a lot of teen girls are going through this, or young women.
It's very sad.
Yeah, and when the Gabby Bettino thing happened, that's when I started publicly coming out and telling my story. Now, my ex is still around, so I won't use his name or anything. And the reason for that is because I never went to the authorities. I could have. I did have physical markings. Absolutely. I would lie about it. Why do you have a black eye? Oh, my sister threw something at my face and it hit me in the eye.
Right.
Or, I fell down, or
ran into a door.
Yeah, the famous door, where I got elbowed in the face. But he would purposely try and hit me in places where you couldn't see bruises. He punched me in my kidney area a lot. That was kind of like his go-to spot. He only punched me in my face once.
Oh, good.
And that gave me the black eye. But, it's sad that a lot of young women and teen girls are going through this as if they don't have enough problems being a young woman in the world, that they have to deal with that. So I'm trying to publicly just make awareness that enough is enough. I want to let young women know that it's okay. You don't feel bad. You're not the only one that's gone through this.
Right.
Don't feel ashamed about it because, I understand how, leaving is hard because you love that person. You generally love that person, and you want nothing for the best for them. But they're, whatever reason that they became abusive, whether it's their parents were like that, or if they had some trauma in their life. My ex, I did forgive him.
Good.
I didn't call him to forgive him, but I forgave him for myself because I can't harbor that anger and resentment my whole life.
That only hurts you.
Yeah, it does. It's like a cancer. One thing I did do though, and a lot of women make this mistake, is that after a relationship like that, every relationship, they either gravitate towards the same type of man, or what they do is they treat every man as if they would be like that.
True.
I always went into my relationships after that one with an open heart, open mind, fresh, clean slate.
Okay.
And I think, my relationship after him, I was married to my ex-husband for 14 years.
Okay.
And the reason why we parted, it was nothing, bad or anything. We just became two different people, and we just weren't jiving anymore. And then I have Dave, and we've been going strong since 2017, and we're just continuing to do what we do. But I've been very open with him about my trauma that I had with that relationship. And there's times where, I get anxiety about it still.
Oh, yes.
I mean, there's been a couple times where I've gone into a store and he's there. And I physically become immobile. I'm like,
Right.
I remember one time I was going to the grocery store and I saw him walk in. I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, I can't. I said, I'm really like, not terrified, but it's like, I can't move, And it's just, just seeing him, it was just like, oh my gosh, but I did start writing a book.
Good.
I know.
Great therapy.
Yes, it is great therapy, and I feel like if I get my story out, and I'm going to try and get, a young audience, because, I really feel, especially the insecurities and everything that young women and teen girls have, really plays a part in that, and they feel like they can't do any better. I mean, like I said, being a teen girl is just hard enough. I can't imagine, having to deal with relationships like I did. It was not, it really ruined my high school experience. I mean, on prom night, he was hitting me and beating me in the hotel room because I didn't want to do what he wanted to do with me sexually.
Okay.
He would also abuse me sexually. He has raped me before.
Okay.
I asked him to stop and he refused. He held me down. Things like that. And everyone's like, well, how do you get raped by your boyfriend? I'm like,
By your husband? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
When you say no, that means no.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like my whole high school experience was not the typical teenage one, and I do regret not having that normal experience, having joyous times with friends, and like I
Right.
couldn't even have friends.
No, they don't let you have friends.
No, they isolate you. It's a weird progression that you don't even realize it's happening.
No.
That's the crazy part of it. You don't realize these things are happening to you until it's too late.
Right.
And that's the manipulation and the things that they do, the sociopathic tendencies that they have.
Right.
They start saying like, well, I don't like that friend. I don't want you hanging out with them anymore. I think they're a bad influence. Or, you'd say, I'm going to my friend's house. Why? Well, I want to hang out. Well, can I be there? It's like they have to control every aspect of your life. And eventually they'll isolate you from your friends. They'll isolate you from your family.
Yes.
And like my parents had no idea this was going on at all.
I believe
hid it that well.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it, but that's scary knowing that I got away with it. I can't imagine what the girls today are dealing with too. So it's just like, I want to make sure that they have an out, because a lot of people, I didn't feel like I had an out. I felt very trapped and alone. I wanted to talk to my parents about it, especially my mother. She had found out that I did have the abortion, and I talked to her. This was after I broke it off with him. I never told my father because it would have broken his heart.
Absolutely.
You know, and I just,
Dads are different.
Yeah, I didn't want him to have that in the back of his mind. But, I felt my mom would have been more understanding of it because being a woman, and she actually had an abortion back in the 60s.
That was extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Like the only time you could really get a legal abortion back then was if you were deemed clinically not competent to have a child.
Right.
So that's what she had to go through to get her abortion.
Wow.
And so I felt like she had an understanding of what I was going through at that time. So, but yeah, I mean, I think I've dealt with the trauma, especially as an adult. I've never done any type of specific therapy for it.
Okay.
But I'm sure that if I were to do some intensive therapy about it, it probably would bubble up a lot of, anxiety and emotions about it. I'm the type of person that I just get up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
Right.
Because I don't have a choice. I'm a parent, I'm a wife, I can't harbor that and keep me down. You know, I have enough problems.
You have 11 children total between you
Yes,
and Dave?
Dave and I don't have any children together.
Right.
Unfortunately, we tried to, you know, we got pregnant a couple of years ago, I believe, and I did miscarry.
Oh.
But I was just like, you know, it's just not meant to be. I mean, it
Right.
still hurts. You know, I look at Dave and I'm like, God, I would have loved to have a child
Yes.
with you, you know?
Right.
I'm sorry I couldn't give that to you. And, you know, you kind of start having that self-guilt again. Like, I feel like, oh God, I can't even give him a kid, you know? It's just like, but I'm like, I can't let that do that to me again.
No.
And because, you know, when you go through an abusive relationship, it really changes the way you feel about yourself.
It does.
And that sticks with you.
Yes.
You know, that's a hard one to crack.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, that's where therapy and things come in, because there's times where I don't feel like I'm enough, or I'm always a screw up, or whatever. But, you know, I have a great husband now who, rights my ship.
Right.
And he's like, no, you are enough, you know? Yeah, you do things that make me mad, but he does things that makes me mad. That's part of being in a relationship with somebody.
It is. Yes. It
You
sure
know,
is.
but the difference is that when we go to bed, we don't go to bed angry.
Right.
We kiss and make up. Or, you know, we watch a fun TV show. Like last night, we were just laughing, watching reels on Instagram of animals. And we just like, to us, that is like a good bonding time for us.
It is.
You know, and, you know, those are the things that I didn't have when I was in that abusive relationship. It was
Right.
constant just, so even if you're in a relationship where there's no physical abuse, a lot of times emotional abuse is just as bad.
It is.
And verbal abuse. And, you know, that's not healthy either.
No, it's not. Not at all.
And
Because that's what really sticks in your psyche.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's hard to shake it, and it really screws with your self-esteem and
your
self-
trust issues that
trust,
you get.
yes, trust issues, because I was cheated on by him many times, and it was just like, is it me? What am I doing wrong? I don't feel like I'm doing wrong, but obviously I am. So then you try and come up with like, well, what am I doing? So you try and change everything there is about you that makes you you. And
Right.
then next thing you know, when you look in the mirror, you don't recognize what your
No.
reflection is.
No.
And if you're getting to that point, you really need to get out and get help.
Right.
You know,
Right.
reach out to anybody.
Anybody. Absolutely.
Anybody. I even put it out there and like, hey, if I don't even know you and you're having issues, relationship issues, reach out to me. I will help you. I've actually had a couple of my friends in high school came to me and they're like, yeah, I was going through the same thing you did. And she's like, I really wish I would have known that you were. We could have really,
Yes.
you know, come together. And I'm like,
And moved
wow.
on
And I
faster.
really think that, but they were in the same boat. They didn't tell anybody either, because it's
Yep.
like, who do you go to? Who's going to believe you?
That's a huge piece, is who's going to believe me.
Yeah.
And the thing is I have found, because you know my story, is that once you tell one person, it opens your floodgates. And all of a sudden you found out that didn't backlash on me. I can talk about this. I can tell people. And I know for me, boy, if I wouldn't have had my angels, because they were talking to me all the time, even though I wasn't always listening to them. But they were telling me, you've got to get out, you've got to leave. And finally, I hit a trigger, and they said, no more. Took my kids, and we were gone.
Yeah. That's what you have to listen to it, because I didn't listen to my inner angel instinct, whatever it was. And it just it hurt me down the road. There was no change in direction. It was just going from worse to worse to worse. And it's like, you know, that gut feeling that you have, if you feel like there's something off, listen to your gut, because, you know,
The gut's your angel.
well, yeah, exactly. It's like your guidance, like, hey, if
Yep.
you feel like something's off, that's when you need to back off.
Right.
And I really wish I would have noticed that or listened to my own intuition. Because because then I don't know what I would be like today if I didn't. I love who I am today.
That's all that matters.
But like what could have made my life better? If I didn't put myself through that. Now, you can always look at the flip side of the coin. I was meant to go through that because of this. And, honestly, the only thing I would change about it is not going to the authorities and getting him charged with some type of assault charges. Because my concern was, and I even told him when I finally had enough, I said, I hope to God you learn from this and you don't do this to another human being at all.
Exactly.
That was my takeaway. That was what I felt good walking away with. I told him my piece.
Okay.
Whether he listened to me or not, I have no idea. I hope he did, because I didn't want anybody to go through what I went through. And, so like now I just put myself out there. If I see a post of a girl talking about a bad relationship, and, I'll comment and say, hey, DM me if you need to talk to somebody. Sometimes talking to a stranger is the best medicine, because they're unbiased. There's no judgment. They're just there to listen.
Right.
Just there to listen.
Yep.
And sometimes, you get the best advice from strangers.
Right.
Because they don't have a side either way. They're going to tell you like it is.
Right.
And, so I started writing my book just to let, hopefully once I get it published. I'm not sure when it'll be done, because I am a busy mom.
Yes,
like
you are.
Between Dave and I, we have 11 children. Most of them are adults, thank goodness. But we do have some school-age kids in the house. But, with Dave traveling a lot for his job, too, I have to be at home, and I have to kind of run the whole kit and caboodle when he's gone.
Plus you have a job.
Plus
yourself.
I have a job, yes. And, so it's just like, I don't have much free time, I guess you can say. But when I do, I like to do things that I like to do, like crochet. I crochet a lot. Okay. It's a good anxiety.
That's a great stress reliever.
Yes, I Dave's like, I do crochet a lot. I'm like, I don't know. It's just, it helps with anxiety. Because I still deal with anxiety and depression. And, now I'm starting to get into the Middle Ages. And, my body's changing. Hormones are changing. So it's just like, one minute I'm like completely fine. The next minute I'm bawling my eyes out. And I don't even know why. I started the change. My mom started young too, but I'm a lot older than I look, but
you look like a kid yourself.
I know, I remember one time I went to Ripley's middle school because she forgot her diabetes kit, and I brought it in, and I was standing there. She goes, don't you need to be in class? I'm like, I'm not an 8th grader. I'm a mom. I'm just dropping off my daughter's kid. She looked at me, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. But, I look back on everything, and, I think it's really grown me, especially spiritually. A lot of people ask me, do you believe in God? Do you do this and do that? I'm like, well, I do believe in something. I don't know if it's the God that the Bible talks about, or if it's just some alien, and I don't know. But I always tell people that I'd rather live in a world with a God than without. I wouldn't want to live in a world without a God or have faith. And I think faith is very important, because it got me through a lot of trauma and issues throughout my life. Because that faith is kind of like that light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
It's your goal to get to there.
Yes.
And whatever you do along the way you have to like stay on the path to make sure you're staying towards that light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I call faith. I have a lot of faith in Dave. I have a lot of faith in myself now, and it really feels good to have that, especially when you don't realize it until you lose it. How despairing and how alone you feel if you don't have that.
Right. Because that's where the hope lies.
Yeah, and I don't care if you believe in angels, if you believe in God, if you believe in, whatever. Have something.
Something you can hang on to.
Yes, because it gives you that hope, that guidance. So I try and live my life now as if everybody's an angel. Or, I try and I always try and make an impact on somebody's day, whether it's just a smile or just to say hello. How are you doing today?
Right. Hold a door open for somebody.
Especially with social media today, we're so disconnected as human beings. I'm a mortgage lender, and I was out at open houses last weekend, and I've had 3 realtors tell me, they're like, we haven't had a lender come into our open houses in a very long time. And I'm like, why? I love interacting with people because I feel like meeting new people, maybe it's because for a long time in high school, I didn't have that.
You were so isolated.
I was so isolated that now it's like, I love to talk. I prefer face-to-face versus texting or on the phone.
Yes.
I love getting out there and meeting people because then it made me realize and appreciate other people's company, relationships. It kind of made it more beautiful for me because I had it ripped away from me.
Right.
And, whether that's a divine intervention, maybe I had to go through that so I appreciate life better down the road. I don't know. So that's why I say whatever path that I'm on, I'm obviously meant to be there.
Yes, you are.
And I know I have somebody watching over me. I don't know what angel I have or if it, whatever it is, but I give them high fives all the time.
Somebody's got your back.
Yep, exactly. So, now do you have specific angels that you feel are around you?
I know of the archangels, I know Chamuel is probably my main angel, and my one daughter, she's confirmed that also. She is very psychic, and I never said a word to her, and she just said to me one day, she said, you realize Chamuel is your archangel? And I said, yeah. Now, is it specifically Chamuel that looks out for me, or is it somebody within Chamuel's legion army? Because the archangels always have their own angels that help them distribute out the work. I don't know, but I know I fall under that line. That's the line that I fall under.
Yeah, I would. How does someone find out? I don't even know. Like,
you have to just sort of start paying attention. So when you get messages, what is the message about? Is it about protection? Is it about healing? Is it about love? Is it about your thought processes? And then that's why I encourage people to take a journal. If you think you're getting a message from an angel, just write down what's going on in that moment. What were you thinking about? What were your surroundings? Who was part of your life at that point in time? Whatever. And then you start seeing the pattern.
oh, okay.
And-
I should do that because I feel like there's been something around me that has helped give me the courage. I don't know if there's specific courage angel, but I get the courage vibe a lot.
That's Michael.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Hey, Michael. Buy me a drink.
Right. Michael probably would.
Yeah, I have
mean,
a feeling
he's the
Michael's
big guy up there. So,
yeah, I think Michael might be a little drunk half the time watching over me. He's like, oh gosh, she's at it again. But I'm also I'm an empath, so I've been kind of and it's been happening more and more frequent. I think I'm becoming clairaudient, and actually we had I'm sure Dave might mention it too in his interview, so I'll save it for him. But we did have an experience 400 miles away from where you guys were at Joliet Prison.
Oh my gosh.
But I'll let Dave do it. I'll let Dave do it.
He alluded to something on social media because I'm thinking, am I going to get to hear about this?
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, especially after my mom died, that's when it really started kicking in for me.
That's when it happens a lot to people.
Yeah, I remember I lost both my parents, kind of not in a traumatic way, but very unexpected way.
Okay.
My mom had cancer. She found out she had lymphoma. She moved to North Carolina to take care of my grandmother. And of course, then my mom got sick with cancer, so my grandmother had to take care of her. But I guess one day my mom just collapsed, and she was going through chemo treatments. Well, what happened was it was kind of like how COVID in the beginning was affecting people.
Uh-huh.
She had a cold and would not having her immune system wiped out. It literally turned into acute pneumonia overnight.
Sure.
And when she woke up that morning on her birthday, she collapsed in the kitchen and she was rushed to the hospital. And she was talking and everything. She just was really sick and felt weak and had a fever. By that night, she was on a ventilator. And it was just very unexpected. Now, my dad, I was probably the last person to speak with my father on the phone about 10:15 at night, and he went out that night to let the dog out for the last time. And 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from the hospital saying that, is your father Edward Field? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm sorry to tell you this, but he had a massive heart attack. And I'm like, no, I just spoke with him. So it was probably like 30 minutes after I hung up the phone with him that he went outside and collapsed. So it was just very unexpected, very, I'm not saying that it's the worst way to have somebody pass, but when you just, it's like getting that call in the middle of the night that your family member was just killed in a car accident.
Right.
Like, it's just unexpected. But after those incidents has happened to me, those were probably, minus my grandparents, but like, those were the closest deaths to me. I started hearing things. Now, about a week after my mom passed, I was laying in bed, I was about to fall asleep, and she yelled, Cassie was my nickname with my family. I go by many names, it's a long story. But she yelled my name, and it was her voice in my ear. And I was like, Mom? And nothing, but it was like she was trying to get my attention. And I had a lot of dream visitations from her.
Okay.
But the problem is that it was like she was trying to tell me something. Like, I could tell she's yelling at me in the dream, but there's a soundproof glass between us.
Okay.
So I feel like, okay, I have a barrier going on here.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to tell me something. What is blocking it?
Right.
And then when my father passed, I think that kind of opened that barrier a little bit.
Good.
So now I'm starting to hear things more often.
Okay.
But I did hear something this past weekend, but I'll have Dave explain it to you,
Okay.
because it's pretty cool. And he was there with you guys at Joliet.
Right.
I wasn't, unfortunately. I wanted to go, but
I know, I was hoping you'd be there.
I know, but I had nobody to. We have a zoo at our house. We got 4 cats, a dog, we got kids. It's just, oh my goodness. But yeah, it's hard for both of us to get away.
It is. I know it is.
And but other than that, I mean, I guess my goal with talking about relationship trauma is to let girls know that they're not alone. Have faith, reach out to somebody. I don't care if it dive deep into a religion if it helps you.
If it does, right.
Whatever. Find something that only you find that is going to improve you, not somebody else.
Right.
Not to impress somebody else, but for you. Whether it's crocheting or having a book club or going to church or just,
Take up art, learn to play an
do
instrument.
something for you, and
Right.
then you'll start to realize that you don't have to exist for somebody else. That you can be your own person.
Right.
That you can think for yourself, do things for yourself, and there's no judgment there. There's no recourse. There's no self-doubt and insecurity.
And you can be happy with yourself.
Exactly. I mean, I look back and I'm like, I was 17 years old and I thought my world was going to end because I didn't have a boyfriend. I'm like, really? There's times where I'm like, Dave, go on vacation somewhere. Go away. I need some me time, But it's just like, God, go find a hobby, Dave.
Like he's got time for anything else too.
Oh, yeah.
Both are so busy.
His job is his hobby, traveling so much, and
Right.
But I don't want him to give that up either.
No.
It's hard, especially in this economy with me being a mortgage lender. It's by the way, if anybody needs it, you can reach out to me.
We'll let you know how.
Yeah, I'll give Jodi my contact info, but yeah, it's just I don't want to give up on it because I feel like I'm so good at it, and I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
God, I just want to be successful at it. But
It just takes time.
It does, and with the economy the way it is, being in Dave's position, I'm like, I feel like I want to do what I can to make sure that he can continue to do what he wants to do. That's why I love being a mortgage banker. I love making people's dreams come true.
Right.
With home ownership, I mean, it's a huge thing, and I have my own personal touch to it, and that's, I think, all the stuff I've gone through my whole life. Like I said, it makes you appreciate relationships more, people more, just somebody's company, somebody to talk to. You appreciate it more.
Right.
Because before it was so traumatizing for you to do that. It's almost feel like it's taboo. Like, I get to talk to people that I don't even know, and I'm not getting punished for it. You know what I mean? It's just like, so it's like, ever since that relationship, every person I meet down the road, along my life, whatever, I try and make a positive impact. And, you know, I want to teach young girls, especially if they're going through something similar to what I'm going through, that don't harbor that. Don't let it eat you like a cancer. Right the ship and move forward in a positive way. So whatever it is, like I said, if you need to talk to somebody, a stranger, I really wish, though, that there was more resources out there.
I do too.
That, I mean, I know there's a lot, but where do you find them?
Where do you find them?
I mean, if I had $1 million, I'd probably buy 10 houses right now and make them all safe houses for women.
For women.
I didn't know any of that existed when I was going through what I went through.
I didn't either.
You know, but I mean, it's out there, but it's just like, you know, I feel like, when you're in that situation, you feel so alone, like you're the only person that's going through this. You have nowhere to turn. I mean, I'm sure that I would have negated a lot of issues that I went through if I would have said something to my mom or my teacher.
Right.
You know, but it is what it is, and I have to learn from my experiences and move on and help people, you know, that may be going through it, how they can deal with it and get out and things like that. And I'm glad that you got out too. It's not easy.
No, it isn't. And I thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
And we will be sure to let you know when Winnie's book comes out, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later.
I hope so. I try and spend at least 30 minutes a day on it.
I know. I'm working on 3 of them right now, and it's like, they're never going to happen because I'm doing 3 simultaneously.
I know. You're like, oh, I have a good idea, and you get in front of your computer, and you're like, it's gone.
Right.
Back to the kitchen. Might as well cook something.
Thank you, Winnie.
Oh, you're welcome, Jodi. Thank you for having me.
It's always great to see you.
Yes, I know. I wish I would have been able to join it with you, but
there'll be other ones.
Yes, we're here together now. So thank you so much, and reach out to me whenever you want me on your show.
Absolutely.
I'll do my best to make time for it. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jodi on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjodi.me. That's chaplainjodi.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jodi. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixbay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.